America, it is great to be back in the saddle with these two gentlemen, Dean Owen and Rod Martin. This is the Business Pulse, brought to you by the Freedom Chamber, online at freedomchamber.net. We're on our way to 100,000 members. If you know somebody that's not in the Freedom Chamber, get them registered today, freedomchamber.net. A lot to cover today. The employment report. We're going to talk about Alberta. We're going to talk about AI and farmers. But first, let's talk about President Trump and the big, beautiful bill, and people are already starting to reap the benefits of it in their tax returns. And Dean, what are you starting to see out there in the field in the land of taxes this time of year?
The simpler tax returns usually come in first, and those are often the ones where mom and dad's going to get a lot earned income credit, child tax credit. We're seeing massive tax return refunds compared to prior years. We're seeing $3,000-$4,000 higher. So everything we talked about last year on what this bill is going to do for America is happening. So forget all the naysayers, forget all the BS, and forget everybody slandering that this bill is not good for America or that it's only a tax cut for the rich, because it is absolutely not a tax cut for the rich. If anything, it does nothing for the rich. Over $150,000, it does nothing for you unless you're a business owner. But yeah, it's working. Tax season's a little bit jacked up this year because of the way that everything flows, and the new Trump accounts we don't have all of our guidance from the IRS, and I'm guessing that's probably the IRS being politicized. And they don't give us all the information, so we have to make a lot of guesses about these new Trump accounts. But they're getting done. So my team is, they're hooked up and running hard.
And that's just going to do nothing but stimulate the economy. Am I right, Rod?
Well, it is, and that even understates it, which is terrible, because Dean is the premier expert. If you're a Freedom Chamber member and you're not using Dean Owen, something's wrong. But no, it's gonna get better from here. We have these $2,000 tariff rebate checks that the president has not fully committed to, but says he has the authority to do on his own initiative. My guess is they're probably waiting to see what the Supreme Court does to make sure they don't have to pay that all back. On the other hand, they probably ought to just pull the trigger on it right now and play chicken with the Supreme Court and say, look, how are we gonna refund all this money to all these foreign companies that paid tariffs, and also every single American $2,000? How do you mean to do that, Supreme Court? So that's coming up. We still don't have a ruling on that case. And I think that means good things. I think what that means is the Supreme Court has realized correctly that the law, including the case law, has historically treated tariffs as fees, which the Supreme Court has clearly said the president has the power to levy. He could put a 400% fee on your imports, and that's completely within his powers, rather than a tax, which Congress would have sole power to levy. And the truth of the matter is, though Congress has the sole power to levy taxes, that's fair if you're not talking about a tax. The president has tremendous discretion here, and that's really well established. So I think he ought to play chicken with them on it. And then, one other thing Dean said, this doesn't help you if you're rich. The big, beautiful bill. That's absolutely true. He said, except if you're a business owner. But, honestly, even for the business owner, this primarily helps the middle class and poor who work for those businesses, not the business owner. So from beginning to end, this is a tremendous boon to the regular people of this country, and it's going to put a lot of cash in their pocket going into the summer and the midterms.
Love everything about it. And you're right, Ron. I like your saying playing chicken with the Supreme Court, because if he does pull the trigger on that, how do you unwind something that's going to be in the billions, if not $1 trillion worth of funds back into the United States back pocket, then back out to those countries and back out to the American public? You might have pitchforks and torches if that was to happen, if people had to refund their money. I don't know how you would do it. Dean, is there even a path forward to even do something like that? If they were to give us a $2,000 check and the Supreme Court goes, oh, nope, you got to bring it back. How would that even work?
It wouldn't. It would not
exactly.
work. And we're talking about this. I think the Supreme Court's going to have to acknowledge the commander in chief has got all the economic tools he has, as well as the military tools to defend this nation. And if he needs to use those tariffs to defend this nation, that's just another tool in his toolbox. And I think from that angle, that's an angle that's not really been discussed a whole lot, but it's going to be, because the president's made it clear he intends to use tariffs to protect our economy and grow our economy and protect our neighbor and shut down our enemies. That's the military. That's the commander in chief. And you cannot remove his tools.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the employment report that came out. Rod, your thoughts? It came out a lot better than they thought for January.
And it's just going to keep getting better. I mean, we've got $18 trillion in new foreign investment into the United States. It didn't all come at once. It won't all come this year, but you're seeing actual shovels in the ground, plants being built, data centers being constructed, nuclear plants being authorized. All of these have to be built somebody. All of these have to be staffed by somebody. And these are good jobs. And I saw a piece this morning from a really great writer at the Epoch Times talking about how the cost curve has really shifted on college educations, that you really are finally at a point where for the average American, you actually come out ahead if you don't go to college. That bothers me. I want everybody to have a liberal arts education, and God knows I have a few too many degrees. But the point of the matter is that if you can go into a trade and work in one of these incredibly high-tech, brand new plants, even if it's the Philadelphia shipyard constructing nuclear submarines, which is about to happen, that'll expand our nuclear submarine shipbuilding capacity by 50% in very short order. Whatever it is, these are great jobs on which you can actually support a family like people did back in the day. That's coming back because Donald Trump has absolutely forced the issue on reshoring industry to this country. And I got in an argument with a guy from India last night because he's trying to make a big deal about how, oh, well, India won the battle with Trump because, India signed a trade deal with the EU first. Like, first of all, India has an economy the size of California. So no, that's not how we see it. And second, and crucially, if we have greater access to the Indian market, which we do because our new tariff on them is 18%, their new tariff on us is 0%. If we have good access to foreign markets, which Trump is bringing us, and we're also incentivizing foreign companies to build their manufacturing in America, this is just all win. We're just getting richer and richer and richer.
When we talk about the big manufacturing, but what happens when these big manufacturers pop up, like you said, Philadelphia, that employs hundreds of people that have a great living wage, that just does nothing but helps restaurants out. It helps the mom and pop shops out in the downtown areas. It keeps the economy boiling at a great pace as we get into this big, beautiful bill and it unravels itself. And you said the trillions of dollars coming back into the economy on the American side, the shovels are in the ground. It's just not about the big corporations. It's about these nice paying jobs that families can actually afford to go out and do things. Go to a movie, go to a restaurant, buy the new car, buy the furniture, buy the new bedroom set, buy the house, get the lawn care, get the new roof. All of that stuff comes into play, just not the big manufacturers. So it's great to see that. It's great to see that President Trump is doing what he said he was going to do. And Dean and Rod had called it 6 months ago. This would start to really take up fever pitch right in the, I think you said early Q2, maybe late Q1. And here we kind of are right in the middle of February. So spot on. Dean, your thoughts?
Well, kind of looking at the whole tariff thing from a different angle. Look at what's going on with Canada right now. There's quite a dispute. I think the Chinese government has infiltrated far too much of Canada's government. Trump knows it. Western Canada does not like it. There's serious talks about Alberta joining America. And if there's, the USMCA is coming up this year, it has to be renewed. And Trump has said if he doesn't get what he wants, he's going to put a 25% tax all across Canada, anything that comes into the country. That's the big stick. But what's the bigger stick? It may mean that that pushes Alberta to say, if we join the United States, we don't have that 25% tariff. And Trump, Trump is an expansionist. That's Greenland, Eastern Canada, or Western Canada. That's what's going on. All of that's cooking under the radar right now. It's just not today's hottest worry, because we just found out that the liberal lied about Epstein, and Trump blew up when he sent he sent a phone call to the FBI in 2006, and and I think Rod and I called it right. We said Trump was triggering and entrapping the left whenever he said, "Oh, there's nothing there. There's nothing there. There's nothing there." He was manipulating them. He plays them like a drum.
And speaking of Canada, did I read a report that there's a bridge that they've been trying to open in Canada where President Trump is like, look, we helped fund some of this. We need to make sure we're getting some of it back. And did I read that incorrectly? Or did I read that correctly, Rod?
No, that's right. And Carney said today that he'd had a call with Trump and he thought they'd get it worked out. And that's probably true. But, to the Epstein point Dean was just making.
Yes.
Yeah, it turns out, now that we have all these documents, Trump appears to have been the first whistleblower to call the law on Epstein. He's the guy. And of course, we all know that it was the Trump administration that prosecuted Epstein. Epstein got convicted and went to prison in the last year of the Trump administration. And then they're trying to pretend that Biden had all these documents for 4 years, but did not use them to go after Trump. Well, you know what that means. That means there's nothing on Trump. And that's just hilarious. He talked them all into going out and demanding something that is now going to blow up in the face of their party. It's hilarious, and it forces the media to actually cover this to some degree. They're trying not to cover it, but they made too big a deal of these things having to be disclosed to completely avoid it. So it'll be interesting to see who gets prosecuted from here. Meanwhile, the government of Great Britain may fall imminently.
Yeah.
Yes, we can touch on that too. But one of the things that I want to touch on, Ron, and inside of your Martin report, which you can find at rodmartin.org, today you talked about AI and how it's going to take an effect in the farming community. I found that article to be fascinating because it's things you don't think of. When you think AI, you think of more manufacturing jobs, you think of artist type jobs with music and things of that nature. But when you get into farming, walk me through what that report said today, because I think it could have a very big impact on the economy, but also save farmers around America.
Well, the other thing you think of when you think of AI is job destruction.
Yes.
Which is kind of silly because, we've been introducing new advanced technologies that save labor for the last 300 years. And we have many times the population we had in 1700, and most of them are employed. So that's silly. But in the farming instance, it's really a problem. 47% of American farm workers are illegal aliens. 47%. We're talking about half. So you got to do something about that. Trump is kicking these people out of the country right and left. That source of labor isn't going to be there. Will there be a guest worker program? Almost certainly. Those things are good, but honestly, you don't want that for people anyway. You want to move them up the food chain. You want them to be able to supervise and do technical work that pays better and lets them escape poverty. That's what this is doing. So John Deere is one of the global pioneers. Everybody's got to love John Deere. You probably had toy John Deere tractors when you were a kid. John Deere is a global pioneer on automated farm machine driven by AI. These are basically farm robots. That's what they are. They don't look like, people like C-3PO or an Optimus robot. But they're robots, and they are vastly more accurate. They can spray just a tiny amount of pesticide exactly where it needs to go. They can put a micro amount of irrigation in exactly the place it needs to be. It radically increases farm yields and our ability to pick those crops with accuracy on less land with fewer inputs, bringing down the cost of everything. So if you want to eliminate global hunger, this is the tip of that spear, and it's going to make it possible for American farming, but also farming in places like Japan, where all the farmers are too old and they're not able to farm their land anymore. It's going to avert a global food crisis that otherwise would be coming, and it's going to mean that everybody gets more and cheaper food.
Love every part
Yeah,
of that.
2 points there. One, immigration, the other AI. Literally just within the last few months, we've started to use a new AI tool in our tax planning. And you say, well, that cuts a lot of time out of the manual work of doing tax planning, and it does. But what that allows us to do is to shift our time to being relational, which is what, if you give just numbers at people, they mean nothing. They got to have context. And so it's letting us be much more relational. Clients are still getting huge ROIs. Everything's still working. There's still a massive shortage of in many different sectors in the economy. And then talking about immigration, what we're doing there is we're exporting a lot of criminals, and we would probably have self-deported a lot of low-end, unskilled, dependent labor. And I use a TN visa program, which I bring very, very, very experienced, highly trained financial professionals to America legally. I do it through the immigration system. Elizabeth, love you, girl. She's not a lawyer. But what we're getting there is let's import the right talent and export the wrong talent. And that's where we're headed. It's just, I think we need a new American dream. It needs to be America and Latin American dream, because there are some amazing people. We always think about the Mexican workers as being farm labor or construction crews. No, they have high-end universities. They have high-end accountants. They have high-end doctors, veterinarians, engineers. They have all of that sector. And those people want to come to America. Yeah. And it's an abundance of labor. They don't abort their babies in Mexico, so they don't have a labor shortage.
Understood. I think there's a new horizon that's
values,
yes,
and who will add to the economy. That's exactly what we want. And that's what we used to do. And this cattle call, send us all your felons, is just a total failure. The Democrats did this to swap out one majority for another. It isn't legitimate. It's not good for the country. It is a purely partisan project, and this is changing it materially for the good of the whole world.
Absolutely.
For
Go ahead,
our
Dean.
viewers, if you wanted to look at that TN program and you want to know more about it, give me a call, jump online. I'm not going to charge anything. Just help you get connections you need and understand the program, because it does have some restrictions on it.
Speaking of getting connected with you guys, Dean, where can we find you online for our listeners and our watchers here?
OwenCPA.com. That's OWENCPA.com. Jump online, connect with my team, sign up for the newsletter. It's all free. The fellowship and the conversations are free. To see let us help figure out a way to make sure we disinherit the government and not your kids.
Yes, and the Martin Report found fresh in my inbox today. Rod, where can we find you?
We're at rodmartin.org. That's rodmartin.org. We do daily geopolitical analysis. Fox Business calls absolutely phenomenal. Tens of thousands of subscribers, nearly 300,000 followers on X. There's a reason. So come to rodmartin.org.
And you can also find Rod right on the front page of the Freedom Chamber. We've got a video up there explaining exactly why you should be inside the Freedom Chamber. Gentlemen, I appreciate your talents and your insight so much. It's great to be back in the Business Pulse with you guys. And if you know somebody that's not in the chamber, tell them to get involved. freedomchamber.net. We've got a healthcare solution that saved us personally here inside the Freedom Chamber 51% last year off of our premiums, and nothing changed except the money in our pocket stayed there. freedomchamber.net. Dean and Rod, I appreciate you guys so much, and this has been the Business Pulse.
Healthcare costs are crushing America's small businesses. Premiums have risen over 240% in the last decade, forcing companies to choose between growth and healthcare coverage. The Freedom Chamber, found online at freedomchamber.net, has a better solution. the Guardianship Healthcare Plan. Designed by a doctor who understands that strong care starts with a strong doctor-patient relationship. This plan puts people first while protecting your bottom line. With up to 45% annual premium savings, the Guardianship Plan delivers real care, real savings, and real freedom. Your business, your employees, your health plan needs the Guardianship. The Freedom Chamber Guardianship Plan. Get your quote today. Learn how your business can take control of healthcare. Visit freedomchamber.net, the pro-American business network.